Soxy.
Good morning, Tam Tam.
Because we had such an amazing response to the last episode with Ian Harding from PLL, we are going to do it again.
It's another PLL reunion, isn't it?
We're going to pop out Cherry for the third time, which I didn't know that you could do. Sew it back up, pop it again. Sew it back up, pop it again. We actually have one of my favorite people who kind of started the whole Pretty Little Liars journey. We started together, Keegan Allen.
Keegan Allen.
Hello, everybody.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
I feel like I kidnapped you just slightly. You're just like, what is this? What am I doing? Why am I coming here?
Voluntary kidnap.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not going to let you go. We're going to keep you for at least an extra 20 minutes.
At least an extra.
So settle in.
So
Love
settle in. So knowing that you were coming in, I really reminisced about our past together, and it was about 7 to 8 years ago. I remember we sort of started this journey. Our characters started this journey together. And do you remember the one time, and you're laughing because I know you do, and you were like, oh, it's so exciting to be here. I'm so excited. And I was like, give it time. You'll get over it.
You're so cynical.
Yeah.
Yep. I do remember that. Actually, one of the first times I ever professionally stood on a soundstage was with Tammin, and I remember that moment. I think I'll remember to the day I die.
Sorry.
That I was like this, green actor just starting out in the business, and I was so excited.
He was so excited.
And we're doing this take, and we're walking down in high school, and people, there's 100 extras, and I'm like, oh my God, we're on the call sheet. We're working actors. Yeah. I'm like, this is so exciting. And they're like, back to one. And I'm like, back to one. This is the best thing in the world.
I'll keep going.
And you were just like so jaded already.
I wasn't.
You're just like, give it time, kid.
Give it time. And then I remember whip pan to like the 7th season, and you were just sitting there, and you looked at me, and you're like, I'm jaded. Can we just go the fuck home? And I was like, see, I told you, it's gonna catch up to you.
Well, it never really does. Even though there were times that I'm you're tired and it's late on set, there's still a magic of being able to work and play pretend and
definitely
and be in that world. I always enjoy it, even though there are sometimes those long hours.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that because the show's over now and we're not on set every day, you don't really realize how lucky you were and how grateful you should have been until you don't have something, and I feel like all of us in a way are like, oh shit, we want that next job. We want the next, not even the next pilot that goes and does so well, because it was really lightning in a bottle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've had a lot of time to kind of try to, I guess, digest Pretty Little Liars in totality. And now that, I'm in my 30s and so much has happened. It happened so quickly. It was one of these cult classic shows in which even now that it's off the air, people will still come up to me and be like, oh my God, I loved, the character. I loved the show, and let's talk about it. And it's such an interesting thing because it is so far away, yet it really was a quick, straight to the top kind of quick Teen Choice Awards, Critics' Choice Awards, showing up to events, premieres, and just like brand deals and endorsements, and such a huge, vast, deep career so quickly. And when all of that kind of immediately tapered, it was a great thing for me, because I went into a self journey that I needed to take in my early 20s, and I didn't. But it really like put a lot into perspective.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You mentioned like a quick rise to fame with the show and everything. Were you sort of prepared for that? Like for all the trappings of like being a young celebrity and like people coming up to you and recognizing you? Was that something you were ready for?
I don't think anybody's ever really ready for anything like that. And we see in pop culture all the time people, that I won't even name names. Everybody just knows anybody that I'm talking about. There's so many examples of this throughout history of people that were consistently fed that fame and never really able to digest it, never really able to take the time to understand what it was and what kind of convergence it was of all of these people, these fans, the paparazzi, the TMZ, all of the things that feed other people with fame. And if you're the source of it or the root of it, or you're on a show that's the source of it or the root of it, I don't think you're ever ready for it. You can, there's also a lot of friends that I've had that think that they're going to get on a show, and they get on a show or they get a pilot and it doesn't go, and they're ready. And then that fire burns away. I don't think any of us were ready for what it became. Even though maybe some of us were more prepared, I think that would be the better way to say it. I was very prepared for it. I felt prepared. I had done a lot of, I'd done schooling, I had done a lot of work, but I don't think I was ready for it.
Yeah.
You know?
I don't really think fame is that healthy for a person.
Oh,
I
she
think
is
especially
not
when you're
healthy.
in those even formative years, but even like your adolescence, in some way your early 20s, because you feel like the world needs to, like, owes you something and is opened up to you in a way that isn't opened up to anyone else. And I realized I started this business when I was 15 years old, so I don't really follow the rules, because when you're famous, there are no rules. Like you show up and they say, don't worry, it says no parking, park here.
Yeah.
Oh, don't worry, like you can eat this even though it's not, on the menu, we'll make something special. So you're given so much special treatment that you feel like in your life that is how the world really works. And it can really fuck you up mentally about, following along guidelines in a way.
What do you do when it ends too? Like, is it something that, is it like a shock when it ends and all of a sudden it's not like, you're not getting maybe as much preferential treatment and things like that?
Yeah, I don't think it ever really ends. I think what it is that it's an ebb and flow. Like, you do a project and then it starts back, the beast starts back up again. And then it goes dormant for a while. I never really noticed any kind of ending to anything. I think the only thing that I have noticed is that I have more time for myself in the last year. And I took that time to, really do a huge journey into ego and understanding ego. And, we were talking about this before we were recording. I think I can kind of bring it up just in the brevity of a sentence and not get too deep into it. But that's why, you walk a fine line as a celebrity or as even a person in a public eye to give your opinions when they come from a place of entitlement. It's very difficult to be taken seriously, whether that's in a political forum or in a forum in which you have no social standing and you're trying to help out. It's very difficult to come out and say things sometimes because you're not taken seriously, or people can see through that and see the privilege, see the entitlement. And I'm not saying to not stand up for the things that you believe in and have passions for and willingness to change. But I am saying if it comes from a place of genuine authenticity, your authentic self, you're invoking your inner counselor, you believe in what you're saying with a passion, then absolutely stand up for it. But be careful how you do it. You know what I mean? So to come back to your question, I guess when it ends is then for me it was going into myself, like going inside and recognizing ego and how much meditation, sleep, drinking water, like really
Don't throw them in the mix.
Those three things ever again.
Yeah. And like, here's the other thing too, is like, even talking about this right now, I feel like my ego is getting like bigger because I'm like, I know something that others don't, but it really is, everybody knows this stuff. And I do sometimes find that, if you do a deep dive into public figures that you really respect, you'll start to notice that, that the age of recklessness is kind of over. There is a lot of reckless behavior in celebrity culture, but like, you don't respect those people anymore. And like, if you do, like, you need to reevaluate your icons and legends, When
you finished the show, did you feel a sense of loss or depression?
No, but I did, it wasn't loss. It's like, I think I said this before, but it's like reading a book and you finish a great chapter and then you go to the next chapter. There's no like, oh man, I'm so bummed that chapter ended. It's more like, I'm so glad I read that chapter. What an amazing chapter in the book.
That's perspective, though, and that's having gratitude, because I don't think a lot of people feel that way. I think, being able to be on set and surrounded by your extended family almost, and then you know in your heart, because that's the nature of this business, you know that you never will see them in that capacity ever again.
Yeah.
And that's that sense of like, the chapter is ended and it will never open up again, and those memories are in the memory bank.
Yeah. It's
the movie comes out.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Come on, you guys.
We're like,
Follow
what
the
movie?
beans.
We're like, what movie?
Yeah, no, but there was a lot of equity in that exchange at the end, especially, and with being there on the last day on set, it was very, very hard. I mean, I remember Ian, and Ian's a funny guy. We were talking about this before. Ian will make you laugh till you cry. He just comes up with crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I remember Ian came up to my dressing room the last day that we were shooting, and he came up into my dressing room and he just sat there and he just cried. Ugh. And then I started crying, and we both just sat in my dressing room and cried, and seeing someone that, rarely ever showed vulnerable emotion in a private way. Mm-hmm. Of course, an amazing actor. He's so lovable. I have such an adoration for Ian and how fun and charming he is. But to share that kind of moment, that's the kind of stuff where you experience after 7, you see 10 years of being around somebody and seeing something end. And to me, that wasn't lost. That was just gratitude,
I believe he said you guys were doing a night shoot, and then you guys
were
dressed and you got drunk. You got 3 martinis.
But he said you only had 2 lines or something.
You only had 2 lines, but you came back drunk as skunks on set.
I don't remember. Oh. Wait. No, I think I do remember something along these lines. It was maybe the Smokehouse era.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So now I don't condone ever doing that. It was a big party scene, I believe. I do remember what happened.
We didn't method acting.
We didn't go. We were not. I just want to make sure that I preface this correctly.
He told a lot of stories.
He
was not holding back.
Like this wasn't us being like, let's go dip and get drunk. It was more of like, let's go across the street to the Smokehouse and grab some food. Mm-hmm. And while we were doing those big party scenes, for people that don't understand, it's not only is it like, it's not like central on one character. There's like, 100 extras. You're a professional actor, but the camera is doing, it's on a super techno-crane. It's getting like a bunch of shots, and like, it's not like a scene. I'm trying to make excuses for the fact that we ended up going to
drink martinis.
Well, what happened was we went over to Smokehouse. He told the story, but we just started there was a live jazz band. We felt very old Hollywood. It was in the spirit of that old Hollywood.
And you had no lines, he said.
We had no lines. We had no lines. We had already shot out all of the scenes.
He doesn't care. He's like, this is what happened.
I remember what it was, and we were in our suits. And wardrobe is always like, if you guys go out and eat, make sure you take off the suits. So we had like just our vests on with our. Nice. Like it was like a very cocktail feeling. We were in old Hollywood.
Acting.
It was so
a la Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah, it was really fun. And like I'm not a drinker, but it came on very fast. That old Hollywood jive that he had with me.
So let's go back a little bit to your early Keegan upbringing days. So you're actually from California, I'm from Australia. So it's very. It's not common that I meet a lot of people that were born and raised in California. So what was it like being raised in California to 2 artist parents? Your parents are both artists, correct?
Yeah. I know all of Los Angeles because growing up here, you like kind of have a different relationship with it. You're a single blood cell running through veins that very well at this point. But I enjoyed it very much. My parents instilled in me creativity, and creativity is very difficult to explain sometimes. It's something that most artists never talk about, this stuff, and it really it frustrates me. And my parents were very adamant about success and failure and understanding that creativity is an ebb and a flow. And sometimes everybody has fears. Every artist has fears. We all like, and if they say, "Oh, I'm not scared," like they're lying. Sometimes the fears can be as small as, you know, a little tiny thing, and sometimes it can be as big as a kraken. And it could be nervousness, anxiety. We all have those things, and creativity in that ebb and flow sometimes comes and sometimes it's not there, and it's okay. It's okay to go through that as an artist, as someone who creates. And so that kind of structure growing up was really helpful in not only like, you know, alleviating a lot of stress of being an artist and being a creative in the creative spirit, but also to give me the avenues to create, whether that was photography or music or acting or writing or whatever it was. So really wonderful. My father was like very thespian, he's very hammy too, very, very much like into Shakespeare and stuff. And my mom is a painter. She does like watercolors and very, very rapidograph, like very technical painting, and she's very, very talented. So,
you know, we hear a lot of stories, especially from kids that grow up in Los Angeles, about falling into sort of the pitfalls of the city, you know, the Hollywood life and like this and that. How did you manage to not fall into that and just, you know, walk like a straight line?
No, so I did fall into it. I mean, it's a deep pit, and it pulls very, very quickly. And especially for like the beginning of my years living here, I was very content with just skateboarding around. I didn't understand like why people owned homes. I didn't understand why people paid rent.
Why do you shower?
Or like spent $100 on dinner. Like I never understood that. Like for a big group of people, not on yourself, that's crazy. But I feel like it was interesting to live within Hollywood and see not just the thin veneer of which it's the glamour, it's the dream, it's the drive of the town to be seen, and the vanity of the city, whether it's the lowest points of like transient life or the highest points in glamour of living in the hills and being, you know, an executive. In between there, I was bouncing off all of those walls, and I was very interested in that. And that's why I wrote my book Hollywood, and I also like photographed Hollywood from a very intimate standpoint, because I was fascinated by a town that was also an idea that people would come here and, you know, from Australia, from the Midwest, from other countries, from all over, and seem to think that they were just going to make it, right? But what is making it? What does that really mean?
Dream, right?
It's the American
dream. And no one even knows what the American dream is. No one knows. And everyone's fighting for it. And everyone wants this white picket fence, but it's like the darker side of the white picket fence.
Correct.
And yet everyone feels quite claustrophobic here. And they want to like escape, but they can't, because this is where their dreams are meant to be made.
Right. Yeah. And there's a lot to be said about the fact that, you know, I did all of the actor, like the beginning actor things, like I worked at a restaurant. I washed cars. I was a valet. I worked at the Beverly Hills Hotel. I worked at the Standard. I had a crazy Harvey Weinstein experience.
Oh, what was that?
I actually talked to Ronan.
Please tell us.
I talked to Ronan Farrow about this recently. I reached out to him about it because I read his book, Catch and Kill. It's incredible, by the way. If you read it, it's incredible. It's also terrifying, and that predators like that exist scare me so bad. And
in a position of power as well.
In a position of power, and just the worst, scariest thing ever imaginable. But I was working at the Standard when I was about, you know what's funny too, is like even telling the story now, how much people don't understand that aren't in Hollywood, how much power Harvey Weinstein had over people, that even me sharing the story now is scary to speak out, because there's a fear that like he still might get you for it. He still might come and shiv you in the night.
Right.
So, but I was working in the Standard. I was really young. I was a maitre d' at the 24-hour diner. That's the Standard on Sunset. And I love that place. And I was standing in the front, and I had the hostess that was with me. She was we were wearing, you know, just like basic. The uniform was like, she was wearing like a white skirt and a blue shirt, a very tight blue shirt, and I was wearing white khakis with a tight blue shirt as well. And the reason they had that is because at the time you could be a pool maitre d' or you could be inside. So just that plays into the story. It was like pretty late. I was doing the graveyard shift, and I was standing there, and this guy comes in. I didn't know anything about him. Okay. I just this big hulking male figure walked by me, and he had very beautiful women with them in sparkly sequin dresses. And he walked by, and he grabbed the hostess's ass as he walked by, and he went like grabbed her ass and then pointed at the back table, and he said, "Thanks." And he just walked by, and I went into a rage. Like, I was like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Like, I was just, and I was in that young buck mentality of like, because I was friends with her. I knew her at this point. You work enough graveyard shifts with someone. You're like,
she know him?
There's a camaraderie. No.
Okay.
And she just like, was just like tensed up. And I was ready to move. I was moving. And he was sitting and he was like moving to the back. He was like moving through the, it's a linear
just a straight
topography of that. So just a walkthrough. And that was back when there was a purple room. People that are in Hollywood know what the purple room is.
I don't know what the purple room is,
lounge.
Oh, purple.
It doesn't exist anymore, but it used to be this like
naughty.
No, I don't know. I never really was able to go in there.
But yeah, he's like, everyone knows, but I've never been in there.
But there was a line, so he got through the line. So I was going to go and confront him. I was going to go actually like in my heroic mentality. I was like, I'm going to go grab this motherfucker by the collar and throw him out in the street. Like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I'm not going to put up with this shit. Cause I would like, I would regulate. I was like, I was in that young mindset.
Yeah.
I start walking, and the MOD, the manager on duty at the time, she grabs me by the back of the collar. So I was like, what's going on? And she goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm going to go kick that motherfucker out. I said that. Like, I was very upset. And she's like, no, you're not to do anything. Do you know who that is? Do you know who that is? And I'm like, I don't care who it is. I'm like, who is he? Is he like run the hotel or something? She's like, no, that is Harvey Weinstein. And you will not approach that table or you will be fired. And I was like, fuck. All right. Well, I don't care who he is, but like, what is that? What he like grabbed her ass. Like that was like flagrantly inappropriate.
Yeah.
And like, he shouldn't be, I don't want him in here. I don't want like, and she's like, I don't care what you want. That's Harvey Weinstein. Like, he comes in here sometimes and like, there's no way. And it was like 2:30 in the morning. It was like crazy because all the bars were, and she's like, get back to the front. We're done with this conversation. And that was it. It never was brought up again. And I'm not trying to like come for the Standard at this point. I love the Standard Hotel. I love Andre Balage's property. I believe it's the Andre Balage property. I have no problem with it. I was a box boy at one point. I was very into the voyeurism. I was into exhibition. I'm not against the Standard and the practices, because they were just they fell victim to all of the power scare that everybody felt in Hollywood. It was a monumental shift that just happened. Yeah. And like going through that personally and seeing that at a very young age, before I was ever even an actor, I would go to like, I was at the time at acting school and conservatory, and seeing that and knowing and like being like, oh shit, this is someone that controls everything. Like, I don't feel good about that, but I didn't know what to do as like a young male in the business. What am I going to do? Go up and pop him in the nose? Like, I would never work again in my mind. Or like, what am I going to go tell a newspaper about it? Like, I felt completely powerless in that moment, and I can't, and it even echoed further and resonated further, like reading into what he did to these women. And as these trials continue, it's terrifying. And
it's the silence that you feel like you have to keep so that you can keep your family, you can keep your job, you can keep everything, copacetic. It's the silence. There's this movie that just came out called The Assistant. I don't know if you've heard of it. And it's really about, you don't really see the person, but it harkens to everything that was going on with the time period of Harvey Weinstein. And you really do realize how much it affects everyone. Yeah. And that's what the film's about. It's not just the people who are getting, are having it done to their bodies. Everyone has to keep quiet. And that silence violence is so deadly,
Yeah.
and it really affects your own sense of self and who you are as a person, but you don't have another choice. So it's such an interesting film because you really do see how it affects the sum of all parts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And yeah, it's terrifying to even be on as far away from it as I was. I mean, for real, I could still feel the heat. And growing up in Hollywood, then it changed everything for me. And that was just one situation. There were so many moments in which I recognized that the business was that there was the beautiful craft of it that I still hold on to, that I'm still chasing that dragon of craft and beauty and art. But unfortunately, there was a sewer that surrounded it that stunk, and everybody knows about it that's in the business. People don't talk about it enough, and I think now people are talking about it a lot, and that's important, and it's good to to be aware of it.
Well, it's important for people also in the public eye like you to share stories like this, because that's the way to make others feel comfortable and be able to tell their stories, because I'm sure that's one of a million stories that, especially with somebody like Harvey Weinstein, is like perpetrated on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, it's important that, I don't want to make, it's not like about me, like my experience with that. It wasn't about me. It was something that just, I hope it didn't come off that way, but it was more of like, it was something that affected me, in a way that, I felt a connectivity. But I'm not saying that like, he abused me or anything. It was just an experience that, when people, the reason I'm saying this is like people are always like, Hollywood knew and they did nothing about it. And my response to that is and forever will be like, what really
were we
can
supposed to
one
do?
person do? It had to be like,
collective.
and Ronan Farrow, like listening to how Ronan tackled it is just, it's an anomaly in which he was just able to, he had all the right resources, had the right laser focus to do it, and he was able to bring all of this together in like one hyper punch and like take it out. And he's still doing, in my opinion, the work that needs to be done to keep it from happening ever again.
He's amazing.
So let's talk about, aren't you a big environmentalist?
I am. Yeah, I am. Yeah.
So what can you tell our listeners? Like, what are good ways to start? I mean, I went to the One World Summit in London, and Jane Goodall was talking about how the Earth in the next, I think it's like 9 years or something, is going to be so warm that it's going to it's going to be catastrophic to all of us in our lives. What do you think the first steps are for people who want to get more informed when it comes to global warming and the environment, and what they can do now? Because I really believe it's about the leaders, and we need to maybe elect the right leaders to help us in the right direction. But what can we do?
Well, so the leaders are very important because they make the ultimate decisions. But on a singular standpoint, what's unfortunate is most people don't want to give up their way of life and comfort to make subtle changes. And that could be, replacing light bulbs with more energy efficient light bulbs. It could be using, instead of one-time use plastic, to do your research on plastic, and the fact that in about, what is it, like, I want to say like 20 years, like all men will be sterile because of plastic. That's a really interesting thing that you guys should maybe research. So one-time use plastic, like there's a ton of companies that make, silicone bags for freezer use, or for, sous videing, or if you're into like keeping stuff in bags or whatever, using glass, ceramic, because even BPA free stuff still is, it's still like plastic. So understanding that, and then I mean, not everybody's fortunate enough to be able to buy an electric car, but to start looking into electric vehicles, even though there is an argument that that electricity is still being made by coal, which is very, very true. But there's a lot of ways to become more sustainable through like solar power. There's a lot of ways to be more sustainable in like the way that you eat, foods, like limiting your meat consumption. It's okay to like, I'm not against eating meat, even though it's terrible, and factory farming is the worst thing in the world. But try and eat more plant-based foods, try and, also don't ever eat refined sugar, ever, never, ever. Refined sugar
Explain that to us, because you were, when I met you in Germany, you were like, you're not eating that.
Yeah.
That has sugar in your vitamin.
Yeah.
So please explain that.
So I was a huge sweet tooth person, and I would always, in fact, like Australia plays a huge part in this, actually.
Sorry.
Not with the wildfires, which are just almost criminal at this point, of like humanity is unaware of how much of an imprint it's made in the climate, that it now has affected an entire continent. It's terrible. The Australian fires are just abhorrent and the worst thing in the world. But what's scary is that what had happened to Australia should be a lesson, and not be something that's like, oh, once we put it out, we'll be fine. It should be like, this is like a red flag. Like if you were dating the world, that would be a red flag to like figure something out.
Yeah.
Okay. But refined sugar is a huge metabolic poison, and it's a killer. And there's so much about diet and fad diets that people will use in order to justify certain behaviors and eating patterns. And America is unfortunately one of these places where not only is it hidden, it's like they take sugar and they slap Gucci on it and make it look like so good. Like they'll be like organic raw cane expellent, or like they'll be like
Fruit sugar.
dextrose, or they'll be like organic beet sugar. I'm like, dude, motherfuckers, this is sugar. So the reason that sugar is so bad,
Agave, I remember that.
agave is poison. So any kind of refined sugar. The reason that sugar is really difficult to talk about is because there's two reasons that there's two walls that come up. Like, so the first wall is, oh, well, you can have it in moderation. Anything in moderation is okay.
Cancer in moderation.
Yeah, like rat poison in moderation is still rat poison. There's so much evidence that what happened, and like, again, like do your own research on this. Don't like me be the bastion of resource here. Just like any kind of research into this. Sugar is a very addicting substance. It's more addicting than cocaine or heroin. It's the most addicting drug in the world, and it's added to everything because it's subsidized in the United States. So that means that Congress actually protects sugar as a resource, and it's a global like $14.6 billion industry in the United States per year. And since like, I believe the early 1800s, it's been subsidized, meaning that they don't fucking pay taxes. Like they just put it in everything, because as an additive, it's addictive. It makes you want to eat it again. It makes you want to eat it more. And it could be as simple as putting it in something called ghee, which is brown sugar. And it's like a spice that they put in soups to make you feel like, oh, I'm comforted. It could be as simple as like a grain additive. It could be canola oil. It can be in any of these hidden processed foods and used and marketed as organic or healthy. The reason that sugar is poison is because it immediately reduces your immunity 50% every time that you eat it.
Great.
And when your immune system goes down, you get sick. And if you get sick enough, you are now chronically sick. And then if it's not just acute anymore, it's actually very serious, and it leads to so many more issues. Diabetes is one of them, but there's also like everything is linked to cancer. Every disease is every disease is linked to sugar. Cancer is linked to sugar.
Feeds off sugar.
It feeds off sugar, glucose in your blood and in your liver. You naturally create sugar in the foods that you eat. And like some foods like carbohydrates, like breads, like white breads, like immediately become insulin in your body, and like your beta cells are like, this is sugar, we're in chaos. But what people don't understand is like, if you have a cupcake and you have an apple, okay, both are roughly between 11 to 16 grams of sugar. The apple is going to be way more satiating and delicious to your body if you're not eating cupcakes as your form of nutrient or energy, because your body processes it as a processed food. So you eat the cupcake and you're like, boom, bang, let's go do something. Let's go out. I feel great. I feel full. I feel nutrient rich. The problem is that that's chaos that you're feeling. That's like throwing like newspaper into a fire instead of putting like a big piece of oak on the fire. And the apple is a big piece of oak. Why? Because it has like pectin and nutrients and things that like add that are your body like can scan it like a computer and immediately understand how to diversify all of the nutrients. Whereas the cupcake is just a quick burn. And what that does in chaos is it not only lowers your immune system, but it's like a huge metabolic, like inflammation based system. So you go into inflammation. That's why people that drink like Coca-Colas or like add sugar to their coffee, they're like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I'm running at the gym. I'm going to the gym. I can't lose weight. Like belly fat, like all of this, like these fad diets are not central on the problem, which is like very simple science behind sugar and what it does to the body. And like when I was in Australia, I was there at a convention with my friend Tom Hopper, who's an amazing actor. He's in Umbrella Academy. He was in Game of Thrones before it sucked. He was I love the writers too, but yeah, disclaimer if you haven't seen it.
Dragon or something. Yeah. I don't know.
It's like a
season 8
has dragons.
I can't get into it because it's too much of an investment.
There are so many ways to fix season 8. Sorry, I'm just a bitter fan. I love Game of Thrones, but anyway, he was in Game of Thrones. He was Black Sails. He did a bunch of stuff, Merlin. And the reason I bring that up is because we were doing this convention and I met him and he's just like jacked. Like if you look up Tom Hopper, just like just be like Tom Hopper and he's like on the cover of Men's Health and he's just like, just fully jacked. And at the time I was like, I'm really into fitness. I'm really into health. And I didn't know that like, you know, in the morning when I woke up, I'd have a croissant with my coffee. I would go and have a cupcake. I'd eat, you know, a bagel with lox and cream cheese and be like, I'm healthy. And I'm fit and I'm gonna go to the gym and like because my metabolism, because you know, there's like ectomorph, mesomorph, there's like different body types and different body types respond, you know, pitta versus vata versus, you know, there's different things that you respond to. So like I was just like one of those people that could eat a cupcake and go to the gym and not notice it. Except I did notice it because I would get sick all the time. And when I was in Australia, fans would bring me Tim Tams and they'd be like, you gotta have the Tim Tam Slam, which is what, like, if you don't know what Tim Tams are.
Vegemite toast and some Tim Tams.
I love Vegemite. I could eat it.
Pie with some tomato sauce.
But you know, like Tim Tams are little chocolate biscuits covered with chocolate, and you bite both sides, and then you drink milk or hot tea out of it.
Delicious.
And they were like, "Yo, try the Tim Tam Slime," you know, and I'd be like, so I'd have that, and I was eating a box of Tim Tams, and I got really sick, and so Tom. The next few days we were off. We were going between Brisbane and Sydney. And we had a week off, and he goes, he's like, mate, you have to come to the door. You have to like let me in. Like we gotta go out. We gotta go get food, and we gotta go explore Brisbane and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, I have 103 temperature. I'm so sick. It must have been like meeting fans, and I'm sick. And like, of course, that was what it was. But the fact was I was eating sugar. And Jason Momoa was like there too. And before, you know, he was just like handing me his Tim Tams that he got. He's like, I can't eat these, man. Here you go. I can't eat these, you know, and he'd crack like a Guinness. No, but I was just like, I was eating all this junk food. And so then Tom said something that like changed my life. And this was in September of 2017. He said, I was like, no, man, don't come in. You're going to get sick. And he's like, no, man, I don't get sick. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't get sick? Like, that's just such a that's like such a ridiculous statement to me, because I would get sick on every holiday. Guaranteed. It was always like February and then between November and December, and then always in like January or between January and March. I would always get sick every time without fail. And he's like, I never get sick. I haven't been sick for years. And I'm like, why? And he goes, well, I just don't eat sugar. I don't eat processed foods. And I'm like, what? Like, what does that mean? He's like, yeah, like it's obvious. And then I was like, no, that's not possible. So what I did was I took 3 months and I didn't have sugar. I didn't have processed foods. And I haven't been sick one time since September 2017.
People who also drink a lot, they're always...
Because that's sugar too.
Well,
yeah, it's alcohol, sugar, yeah.
Yeah.
Lowers your immune system.
Yeah. Because your body, it's hard for your body to process that over time. And alcohol, sugars. I mean, alcohol is a depressant. I don't really like to drink. Sometimes
I've seen you drink.
I have if
you have to drink, what do you drink?
In Brussels.
Vodka.
Vodka?
which I think is such a depressive. I mean,
yeah,
I feel
any
incredibly
alcohol is a depressant.
yeah.
Yeah, tequila's an upper. So
I like
Yeah.
tequila.
Yeah.
But I'm not I really am like, I like to savor alcohol. Like Ian and I will sometimes like have a scotch, but you know, I'm not an alcoholic, but I just always have found myself like not really being into alcohol. Like when people are like, let's go out and drink, it is very rarely will I crave that, you know?
Interesting. So you said you kicked the sugar for 3 months. What were you eating? Like, what are some things that maybe even people at home could
like is
eat?
red meat.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like
So I went through a vegan phase.
with no sugar.
No.
Okay, because it's hard to do
before.
vegan without sugar.
It is.
It turns into sugar. A lot
Correct.
of what you're
Most
eating.
of the things, but there are ways to eat plant-based where you're eating. So a lot, I would have, you know, some sort of a kale salad or chard or arugula with olive oil. Olive oil is your best friend if you're doing this. A little bit of avocado, maybe some egg whites. That's not vegan, but I realized too that like also just if I was going to eat meat, I would eat the highest quality meat that I could. So like if I had a chicken breast, I would make sure it was extremely local and organic and well maintained and it wasn't from a factory farm. And it's difficult to do that in some places in America, especially when I travel, I've noticed. But if I'm traveling, I would do, you know, chicken breast, arugula, or, you know, some form of rocket salad, chard, radicchio. And then, you know, usually like I love Takaya Organica in Los Angeles. I'm a huge Takaya fan. But they do bowls that are customized. So I do stuff like that. And what I noticed after 3 months was not only was I feeling better, like everything about my life changed. I felt like I slept better. I wasn't craving. It was so interesting now is after those 3 months and beyond up until now, if I eat something, I can immediately tell if there's sugar in it, like secretly. Like if I go to a restaurant, and this happened a couple of times. Like I was up in like Northern California, and I went to this restaurant, and my friend's like, "You have to try this. This is like such great. These Brussels sprouts are amazing." And I'm like, "What's in it?" And he's like,
Glazed in sugar. Death.
So
right there.
So the waiter told us that there wasn't sugar in it. There's no sugar. There's no added anything. It's just olive oil, a little bit of chili sauce, and Brussels sprouts. And I was like, there's sugar in this. And he's like, no, not at all. And I'm like, get the chef. I'm going to be that guy. I'm pretentiously going to be that guy right now. This is like a health concern for me. Get the chef. And the chef comes over and I'm like, is there sugar in this? And he's like, well, there's a little bit of, we do like this honey glaze sauce. And I'm like, honey with what? And he's like, well, it's honey whipped with like 2 scoops of brown sugar.
You're like,
And I'm
sugar
like,
on a stick.
I knew it, but it was like so noticeable to my palate. It almost tasted chemical at that point. And people that have gotten off sugar will agree that sugar then becomes almost disgusting, like the taste of that. And I'm not saying sweet. Like I love dates. I have a Vitamix. I make my smoothies every day with blueberry, low sugar berries like strawberries and blueberries, and that's like incredibly satiating. And sometimes if I want the extra sweetness, I just throw in a date.
Okay, so you still do eat sweet food, just not sugar food.
Correct, like no processed foods.
okay, before you have to leave, we want to get in some good questions.
All right.
But
Yes.
what is your greatest fear? And how do you overcome those types of fears?
Well, so fears, greatest fears. So recently we lost Kobe Bryant, and it was terrible for everybody in the world, I think, for different reasons. His family, I can't even imagine going through a loss like that. But I think the fear is death, so loss, so losing people. I've gone through extreme loss in my life. I've lost a parent. I've lost friends. I've lost best friends. I've lost, animals. I've experienced loss, and every single time, I think the fear that comes to me is the recognition that the curriculum of that person, spirit, thing, experience is over. The curriculum ended, and that it ended for a reason. and to try and find reason in that, that's a fear. That there's some sort of a split universe that exists where they didn't leave and that you evolved in another way. Because the fear of loss is something that all of us deal with on a daily basis, and that could be from like losing a friend or a family member or something in like a horrific way, or even in like a totally like you see it coming way. The fear is like how to deal with it, how to deal with grief and stuff.
Do you fear death?
I don't fear death. I welcome death.
It's like a Pretty Little Liars thing.
Yeah, I don't fear death. I mean, I ride a motorcycle every day. In fact, on the way here, I like saw a crash.
My husband saw a guy literally not make it, and it was around the time when you got a motorcycle, and I felt bad. I didn't want to say anything, but like I cared about you, and I wanted to say, my husband has been scarred about what he just saw, because it is such a dangerous form of transportation. Yeah,
I've seen a lot of motorcycle crashes, and I've lost friends in motorcycle crashes. I've been present during motorcycle crashes. And yet like there's something about, maybe it's because I kiss my cat and I have toxoplasmosis gondii that like that's an actual thing I was just like researching. I don't think I have toxo, but most people that have toxoplasmosis are like more thrill seeker people. I don't have toxo. Not like Macaulay Culkin has toxo. He talked about it on Joe Rogan podcast. Well, he had like a stray cat that came in off the streets and like he talked about, I don't know, go look up the Joe Rogan podcast of Macaulay Culkin. But I don't think I have toxo. I think the thing is that going through life and having that, I have such a relationship with motorcycles, and like the thrill of riding it isn't really like the passion of it. It's there's like a freeing feeling of it. It's not about like death or destruction. I don't have a fear of that. I'm like very, very okay with everything. I'm always trying to be at peace in the present moment. So like if I was to just die, like I don't know what's going to happen after death. Like everybody's all prepared for this big earthquake to come, and like granted I have the earthquake kit, but like I do not
just in case
no
I don't
sugar.
really want
With
to
no
have
sugar.
to die.
Yeah.
If I don't have to die, I'd prefer not to.
I would prefer not to die, obviously, but I'm aware, I'm at peace with it. Yeah.
So Keegan, are you saying you don't necessarily believe in an afterlife?
So I don't have any, I don't know. Religion to me has always been a fodder that is fed to the masses to like kind of control panic or control mania. Cause just, it's very powerful. It's a very powerful statement to tell somebody, a human being can't regulate you, but you might not want to do something bad because in that cave over there, you don't want to go, but in that cave over there, there's something that will regulate you. And you don't want to go in that cave until you're ready, which is death. But like, I can't regulate it, but there's someone else that you can't see or hear that regulates it. Now, I'm not saying there's no God. I believe 100% that there's some sort of a like harmonic consciousness that lives within all of us. And consciousness may be experiencing itself through others, almost like a rooted system in which we all live the same lives, but we go by different names, and it continues in like this weird multiverse, or even in the same concatenation of like how we're living here right now. When we die, we may come back as a baby. Your beautiful, insanely gorgeous children may actually be reincarnations of like other people, you know what I mean, or other things. And that's very, very interesting. That's an interesting concept. But religion and believing in an afterlife is, because there is no evidence of it yet to me until I die or until I experience it. And there's also like a lot of paranormal things that have happened in my life. Like I've seen ghosts. I've stayed in haunted places. So I don't know, man. I mean, there could be, the afterlife could be like really terrifyingly binary and simulation based, in which we like, we roam the earth.
He's like,
in a fourth dimension,
right?
That's terrible. But I mean, maybe we are possibly in a simulation. Sometimes when I think about things, they just pop up. And that could also have to do with like,
I literally thought about you and you texted me. I'm serious
No, I know,
about
I
even
know.
coming on this podcast. I was like, oh, Keegan would be so great to talk about everything that he knows. And you texted something about my child. So and I do feel like we're connected in some way. I just feel like we're all sort of, it's all the same thing, whether it's the universe, whether it's God, whether it's internal. I feel like we're all fighting for the same thing. I feel like those Chinese whispers, I say this, and we all just got the story a little wrong. But I agree. I don't know if there's like a place that we're all going that is the ultimate destination.
Well, I think right now, not to cut you off, I do think that we're all like, so that's why like the political divisiveness that's happening right now is so skewed. I'm not talking politics. Don't worry, people. Not an actor talking politics.
An actor talking politics again.
Just like I do think what's happened is very important, right? Like because there is this like. Man, anybody over 50 is going to get real upset, but there is this boomer mentality.
Over 50.
There is this boomer mentality that happened because of, and like, I respect the war. I've done a lot of research on World War I and World War II and the Korean War. My father fought in the Korean War. I'm very aware of the war machine. I get why we go to war. It's very profitable. It creates a huge amount of rapport amongst people. It's togetherness. It's connectivity. Unfortunately, there are other ways to evolve that we haven't dipped into yet as an entire society that would take us to a type 1 civilization, type 2 civilization. And that's like political dogma and religion. Dogma is the number one reason why we go to war. It's why we have conflicts. That's why not all religions are the same. There's not one true religion. Unless you're like part of that religion, you believe it, or a cult or whatever. There is a moment in time that we're at right now where we are like on this like boat where everybody's divided, right? And it's not split down the middle, man. It is split in like 25 different ways. There are so many variations of opinions that exist right now in the universe, in this like origin of consciousness that has essentially started from social media, believe it or not. In this way that we are able to tap in with our phones, we are able to carry with us emotional conversations with multiple people at once, telepathically through our phones, right? We're texting, maybe a loved one about something. We're also like fighting with another person about something. We're disenchanted with someone else, and yet having a one-on-one conversation with someone in person. There's all this is happening, and we don't know what to do with it as a society, and we're like trying to figure it out. And what's going to eventually happen is what has always been happening. And when you leave someone alone to their own devices most of the time, and I'm not going to say a healthy individual, but just an individual that takes awareness a bit to the next level, has like self-awareness, and is able to remove all of this crazy cacophony of noise around them, they become at peace in love and graciousness, and no need or want or desire for anything else. And what has happened is that there is a fight right now between the people that that show love, and there are people that are repressing it and whether or not that's because of coming from a society before where it was repressed, and it could never ever be like that. We all just like are moving forward into this like loving relationship in humanity of like caring for each other. It's very much coming to that summit, and it's going to clash. And when it falls apart, hopefully it will be rebuilt in a place of love and connectivity.
Well,
with that being said,
Can I ask one little fun, silly one?
yeah.
So on the show, on Pretty Little Liars, the two of you, I know you guys shared scenes before.
we did.
Did you guys ever smooch on
Yeah,
camera?
we kissed.
Did we kiss?
Yeah, Tam. She doesn't remember. I remember.
Did we kiss?
Yeah,
did we kiss?
you kissed me.
No. Oh, didn't I go to kiss you?
No, you kissed me.
Oh, I kissed you.
You don't remember that?
Sorry.
I'm that unmemorable. No,
Well, you know what? You know what Ian said?
It was a deleted scene, I think.
No. I went to kiss you and I slapped you. No. You pulled
yeah,
away
yeah,
and then
yeah.
I slapped you.
Oh, and it was like
I went
filmed
to
from the
kiss
window.
you.
I remember that. It was
I went
filmed
to
on.
kiss you,
Yeah.
and then I pulled away.
No, you no.
I did kiss
Yeah,
you?
you kissed me.
I felt like, because Ian was saying that with Lucy, he like French kissed her all the time. I was like, I didn't know that people were using
Frenching?
their tongue
Were you
French-
Frenching Troyan?
Like,
Yeah.
what?
Oh! The truth comes out.
Okay, so
The truth
my
comes out.
entire career for 20 years, I have not put my tongue in anyone's, and
Well,
I've
'cause-
wanted
I
to.
mean-
I mean, like, Jesus.
Well, because like people need to know this as
Why
like
aren't people
acting.
sticking their tongue down my throat? No one has ever done
Well,
that.
you know what's funny is my girlfriend asked me the other day. She's like, "Kiss me like a TV show boyfriend," just to see the difference between like actually making out
Yeah.
and versus TV show kissing. So TV show kissing is vastly different than movie kissing because movie kissing, you can kind of like show off that you can show the tongue, right? But like this is what I've like learned this.
Girl,
It's
you're missing out.
TV show kissing is way more PG. Well, I don't know if it's unless it's on HBO, then like maybe it's not. But like our show, like we showing tongue in it was like kind of icky. It would be like eating salad. It would be unbelievably just weird. But there were times where like is French kissing just putting your tongue in someone's mouth? Yeah.
No one has ever done that to me in 20 years. I have been acting since I was 15
I was
years
gonna
old.
say like in life.
He's never been French
I was
kissed.
like, Sean.
But like, why has no one's ever done that? Am I that like? It must be. No one's ever done that.
It might just be the scenes that you're doing too.
I think I had some passionate scenes though.
What? Well, I don't know. I don't know.
It's just like people just didn't. Maybe you guys, because you were saying it was like your first big show. Maybe you just didn't know that you're not supposed to put your tongue down.
Did you guys like talk about it first, or you just started French
I
kissing?
think we were very like, well, you know, Tryon and I were very professional. There was never any like funny business. It was very much like it wasn't it's like technical, but it was there were conversations like I would have with her, be like, hey, which
Mind is
is
blown.
okay? Yeah, absolutely. And that's why
I've missed out on so much.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I know Ian used to like do very, very like malicious things though. He would like eat like onion garlic chips and stuff before we made out off camera. No, I'm just kidding. No, before he like did scenes with Lucy, I remember he was like one time he was like eating these chips and I'm like, Ian, those are onion chips. And he's like, oh, they are? Oh. Well,
That is
then
so
garlic dip.
mean.
Miss Hale is gonna really have a real crazy kissing scene in about 15 minutes.
Oh,
And he'd like walk off.
goodness.
Yeah. I remember.
You know, for me, it was more out of respect for I've been with my husband for almost 14 years, right? So I just thought if I was in that position and he was on set with a woman, I would really ask him not to. Because I feel like there's an intimacy there that is way deeper when you're French kissing than when you're just sort of faking it. I mean, actors need to act. You don't have to use that next device.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult. It's difficult to say. I don't know. I mean, it would make me uncomfortable if my significant other was French kissing somebody. But if the scene called for it, and now if it didn't call for it, I'd be like,
What the fuck?
what is going on? Obviously, but I mean, who am I to really say? I think I always like I would let my significant other be the judge of their own character, being their destiny within their career and relationship. But yeah, yes.
Okay, we're going to do some rapid fire and then
Okay.
you can leave. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Tryon or Lucy?
Ooh.
Well, Tryon. But
No, you get to say it!
well,
Okay, wait.
Tryon. But I'm gonna explain myself real quick.
Oh, Lord.
Okay, what is it?
I love Lucy a lot, but I don't know Lucy as well as I know Tryon, and I just have so much fun with Tryon.
Okay.
But I'm sure if I hung out with Lucy a bunch more, Lucy's been really busy. I don't know. I haven't
I
seen
get
it.
it. I get it.
Okay, next one. How about Tryon or Tammin?
Oh, Tryon. I didn't knew that wasn't
Well,
on the thing.
Wait, what
I
is?
was gonna choose Tryon.
Hold on a minute. What is this in context to?
Just whatever comes to
Whatever
mind.
comes to
Yeah.
mind.
It's like this or this.
Yeah.
What are the
It can be anything.
consequences of the?
Wait,
of-
we could do shag, marry, kill.
Shag, marry, kill. Shag, marry, kill.
Oh no.
That's so
One of these
terrible because I'm right here.
Tammin,
Tryon
Tryon,
and
or Lucy.
Lucy.
Yeah.
I'm
Shag,
gonna
marry,
get killed. I'm fucking getting killed.
Yeah,
I
you know what this is? It's like
I'm still getting killed.
you're a mixer. You're mixing it up. You're starting.
Yes.
It's gonna start a whole
Oh Lord.
like it's
I
all.
know I'm gonna get
It's
killed.
all
I feel like I'm
laughing.
gonna get killed.
We're all laughing and having a great time,
That's
but then
the headline.
it goes out into the world, and then I get the answer from
yeah.
Tryon or Lucy
Yeah.
of like, hey, ha ha ha, very funny.
Well,
I
want to shag.
Who would you shag?
I don't know. I
He's like
Ian
sweating.
was so easy with these
well,
questions.
the reason is because
He's
like,
like-
I know your husbands. I know like I really love Patrick. I have such a reverence for him. I wouldn't want to be like, hey, by the way,
Shag.
gonna shag Troyan. Because it's like different. It's like,
I would be honest about it.
yeah. Of all the boys.
Yeah, who would you do?
No one ever flirted with me, which is the first like I'm normally like there's at least someone I get to flirt with. There's not one person who flirted with me.
feel like
that would have been helpful. That would have been helpful.
Well, wait a minute. I feel like before I knew you were with Sean, I flirted with you. I would play music for you in my.
I thought you were just being nice, and then all of a sudden
I didn't know any better. I was like,
and then all of a sudden he didn't
kid.
talk. Well, not that he didn't talk to me, but we used to go to lunch together.
Yeah, isn't that flirting though?
Yeah, but then you just stopped. I was like, what the fuck did I do?
Well, you would tell
Go to
me
lunch all the time.
we
Talk
would-
about your family.
Well,
I was
wait.
like listening, and then he just like totally stopped.
you would go to lunch with me, and then I'd be like, this is going so great. Like, this is my first show. I'm with this like really like awesome, so cool, charismatic girl. She's like you're like the Britney Spears of Australia too. So I was just like, this is so sick. You could sing. I like learned your song for you.
Oh
and then we would go to lunch, and you'd be like, Sean and I like hooked up for like 8 hours.
Did I really say that?
And I'd be like, all right. I didn't know. I don't know what flirting is.
With me. No one ever did. It made me sad because everyone had someone to flirt
Clearly, he
with.
was flirting with you.
I
Just didn't
think
pick it up.
I think like the definition of flirting is very difficult, right? Like
No, like
I
it's not
don't
like you
know.
were like, oh, let me take my clothes off, but you were just like, you know, you were just trying to get to know
That would be
me.
a very different like ending to this.
No one
podcast.
ever took their clothes off for me.
Ronan Farrow would be at the door. He'd be like, Keegan.
Excuse me.
Let's talk.
Oh my god.
Well, I'm glad that it makes me feel better.
Yeah.
At least someone did. Okay. Coffee or weed?
Oh man, so I really love coffee. I just got a coffee subscription, but when I was a child, when I was like this is probably not a great thing to tell the youth of America, but I was really into weed. Like I was into weed in like weird ways though. I was into CBD before it was like so well known. I don't like getting high is what I'm trying to say. I don't like psychotropic effects. I like feeling good, but not being like, hey man, like saw dudes. I don't like that feeling. Frying my brain is not fun. But yeah, I love coffee.
Okay.
Coffee. So what about Angelina or Jennifer?
Oh, like with Brad Pitt? Oh, you mean like for me or for Brad
for
Pitt?
For you.
Oh,
Who would you shag?
Who would you pick?
man, that's tough. I really
more interesting shag.
Recently for the New Year's, Allie and I, my girlfriend Allie and I, we watched the episode all of Friends before it went off Netflix, and we did it. We timed it perfectly so that the last episode where they put the keys in the bowl, it ended, and then the fireworks went off outside, and it was so magical because what was not the most magical of it was that we kissed after. We were like, "Happy New Year, Happy 2020," and then we went to go refresh it, and Friends was off Netflix. So, but what I'm trying to say is Jennifer Aniston.
Oh,
Really?
Jenny.
Yeah, I love Jennifer Aniston.
Okay. Sex or money?
Whoa. I never would have. The first thing that
Put those
came
two
to
together.
mind, the first thing that came to mind
need
was
your
money. Money.
Okay.
Money.
More
Okay,
than sex.
last one. Megan Fox or James Franco?
Oh, I love Megan. I love her. I see her all the time. We go to the same kinesiologist.
Ooh, so
And
LA.
we did Zeroville together, and she's just so delightful. I do love James though too. James Franco's great. But Megan.
Yeah, Megan.
Well, Keegan, thank you. I
Thank
feel
you
like
for
there
having
needs to
me.
be a part 2. We'll probably never see you again because
know.
you're
Don't
like,
be
I'm never
sad.
coming back.
No, I
Women
loved
on
it.
top.
No, it was
Thank you
wonderful.
so much for being here and giving us so much information and insight into health and being a better environmentalist and Harvey Weinstein and that you flirted with me back in the day. I should have taken those signs. I would have been
Tammin.
so much happier knowing that
No.
someone flirted with me
No.
within 8 years.
It's
I would
all
have been so
good.
happy.
Don't feel
And
bad.
always French
No.
kiss on set.
And
Remember.
always French kiss.
And always
I'm
French
excited.
kiss.
I'm excited to stick my tongue down someone's throat
Oh,
next time
man.
I'm on set. So
Moving into a progressive forum.
yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Thank you
Keegan.
guys.
And Keegan, we can always find you on social media because you've got like a bazillion followers.
Well,
But it's at Keegan Allen, right?
it's actually at Keone, so Keeoone, and then I have a photography page called At This Foreverland, and
It's called.
Hollywood Stories and Voices from Foreverland. It's on Amazon, and also my first book that I believe
you never gave it to me.
the entire cast. I didn't give you my book. Oh, I'll give you
Okay, thank you.
a copy of Life, Love, Beauty. Oh God. Well,
You can find us on Women on Top Official, and
Women on Top podcast on Facebook.
I'm Tammin Sursuck, and
Roxy Manning.
we are Women
Men
on
on Top.